All right, hello, good morning. I was a little bit late today as our 4-year-old woke up at the perfect like 2:30 a.m. where both my partner and me have like the deepest sleep. It's very interesting how we think about sleep as like the number of hours you've slept, but there's also about disruption at a certain point during your sleep that just completely like, yeah, gets you off track. So I had to spend a few minutes on the couch this morning just to even get to a productive state. But we are back at a productive state. And even though I had disruptive sleep, I think I was like even dreaming about this API surface. It's taking over completely. And what I think we should do is the thing that bothers me the most is this thing. But for some reason, I realized that we also need to change this create. Because even like now, the create is like you actually create the sandbox. But we're going to extend this functionality. Even like in the first version here, we're going to allow you to kind of create a sandbox based on files you actually pass in here, like a files record, where the key is the path and the value is the contents of the file, and you don't really create it because we're gonna hash that record, and you're gonna get back the same thing if you didn't change like the hash or the record. But we're also gonna introduce something called like tags, which is also going to be something you can use to like start a sandbox, and you can use an ID as well. So there's like many different ways of getting this sandbox instance. So what I want to try to do is rather say from ID, from template, from Git, from files, from I think we're going to call it a snapshot tag. So this is what I'm thinking. And we can do this because there isn't anything on this thing, really. Like SDK.sandbox only had the create method. So I think this makes more sense. And it's consistent, and it doesn't tell you explicitly that it's creating something. It's more like it's creating it when it needs to. And also this thing, even though it's synchronous, it doesn't matter if you were to put like an await in front of it. Like, we're not going to implement it as a promise. But if it's like, if you would put a await in front of it, it doesn't matter. That's perfectly fine. And if you have a linter, you would kind of get that information. Because all the other ones are asynchronous. And it also just makes the API explain its capabilities as opposed to just having create. There's no like explicit, like when you explore the library, it's like, what can I do with this thing? And now it's exceptionally explicit what you can do with this thing. So I think we should do this, I think. What's interesting though that I haven't discussed is like, if you do from Git, should it work the same way as like files and snapshot tag? So if you pass like the same, because that doesn't really make sense. Like if you pass the same repo, then it would kind of give you the same sandbox. I don't think that makes sense. Or maybe it does. Like, why would you have? Well, it depends. The thing about Git is that it always depends. Because if it was a protected main branch, you wouldn't want to make any changes to it, right? So, but that's not always the case. So I guess like if you actually wanted to have like a concept of like always having a sandbox representing your main branch, you will kind of call from Git the first time, and then you would maybe like tag it or something. Yeah, but at least we're gonna change this for now because it does explain much better what the capabilities are of the SDK. And then we're gonna let it sit for a while. So we're gonna make this change, and then we have sandbox restart hibernate shutdown is up to date. And here we would start adding like a snapshot, whatever. I have a session in 1.5 hours about that. But then we have this thing. Oh, damn you, Apple Music. I'm still not sure about this one. It does feel much better when you just say connect. And this could be like, this is the thing, like connect SSH. Like, should they just be methods that explains what they do? The problem with this is that now there's no consistency in us creating, like, it's not behind the concept of a session. Because all of them are sessions. Like internally, they all create a session. It's just that session is consumed in different ways. And this is the thing I can't quite land on. It's like, and all of them takes the same argument. It takes like configuring the session. And by the way, this doesn't take anything. This takes start options. This one, well, this one is also interesting. It's like when you do from files, the start options only make sense the first time. No, wait, sorry. Well, kinda. So if you were to, like, it's so interesting. So if you were to like set some files, define some start options, you run it, and then you don't change the files, you just change the start options, and then it wouldn't work. Because if the sandbox is already running, the start options doesn't have any effect. I don't like that inconsistency. I don't think it's like a practical issue. But there's something about it. Anyways, from snapshot tag doesn't have anything either. So these are like quite similar. It's just two different ways of grabbing it. From Git, from files. And here we could have like from zip, from Dropbox, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but these things, yeah, we also explored this thing. Session connect. And then, but you can also do like session equals sandbox create session. Like this is what I originally intended. And then you pass the session. So you just create a session, and then Sandbox Connect is the WebSocket thing. You don't, and now you actually have the browser session. So now it's about passing that session to the browser. And then you have like connect SSH, pass in the session, create the REST API, you pass the session. But then you have like even one more step that you need to do. So like if you, so you kind of, there's a point where like when you're designing APIs, in the beginning it can be super, super simple and straightforward, right? But as the complexity and capabilities increase, it's very hard to kind of keep that feeling of it being super simple. So for example here, we're creating a sandbox, and then I could do like create session. It's very explicit, right? But then I also have to connect to it. So it will be like connection or something, where I say await sandbox connect session. Like this is super explicit. It tells you everything about like what's happening. And it makes sense because this session can be used with different things. But at the same time, you could even like persist the session if you want to use it again later. For example, REST supports that. It is very, very interesting. And I think this is the most correct way of doing it. Well, what we could also do actually that I didn't think about. Is that what if you only need to do this? No, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, sorry. No. So what if you didn't have, if you don't pass a session, we're going to run create session for you internally. But if you actually want to create an explicit session that has like a unique user, blah, 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 then you have to do that. But then you could argue that you can just do that here, right? You don't need that like separate thing. But maybe that's a good thing because that would solve like the browser thing. And it's like more explicit that you're actually creating a session. So by default, when you like do Sandbox Connect, you're going to be operating with the global session. But then you can go in and you can actually create a session. Yeah, there's something about that. And then you can connect. So we can still allow this. But then what is this thing? Because if this is a session, sandbox, create session. If this is a session, then what is this thing? It's not the sandbox, it's not the session. It's like, it kind of is your session though. Like we even call it the WebSocket session. Maybe we shouldn't call it create session. Because what you're actually doing is you're creating a user. Oh, that's interesting. but internally we're calling it session. But you're literally creating like an operating system user. And then you connect with this user. I kind of like that. I think it, like, session is such a generic, like a session is what you have, what you what you need to interact. It's like, I think of it as a client thing. It's not a server. Well, it is a server thing, of course, but yeah, no, but it makes sense that it's a. It makes sense that it's called a session. But then if you connect to a session, what do you get back from it? Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this one, but I think we're onto something. That if you don't pass in a session to connect or these other methods, we're gonna use the global. We're gonna call this thing internally and use the global session. But you can then rather pass in an explicit session. That makes a lot of sense. But then we have two sessions here. Like, what would you call this thing? Would you call it like the client or something? Client? We do call it client internally. Like, this is literally using something called a pitcher client. Pitcher is like the dev process you're interacting with. Yeah, maybe we should do that. And then we have like, okay, what if we try that? And then, okay, I figured out this thing here. This pops up when I'm using my mobile phone. I wonder why though. Is it like sharing full screen? Yeah, it's weird. So what if we have create session. You can connect. So you have a client, again, client, and then we say create REST client. Yeah, but this is also kind of weird because like connect is also kind of returning a client, like it's returning a client. But let's forget the SSH thing for now. So you have connect and you have create REST client. Why aren't you creating this client? Create WebSocket. It feels so much smoother calling connect. But then it's so weird that you have to like create REST client. But maybe that's fine. Maybe that is perfectly fine. Yeah, and then we call internally, we call this like a WebSocket client. We call this a REST client. But yeah, it's but you're not connecting to REST, right? Connect REST. You're not connecting to it. It's like it's so much, but it does make sense that here you're actually connecting because you're creating a connection, a long-lived connection, but you don't do that here. So you're more like yeah, but maybe it just has to be this way. Like there isn't any like generic way of expressing this. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna try that. We're gonna refactor that, and then we're gonna try implementing the Git thing. The Git, yeah, the Git thing. Let's see, I just have to stay on top of my. Oh, and you know what? I have to actually, because I'm doing a lot more support. Yeah, no, I can't keep getting. I think I have to time box the stuff I'm doing. So now we're doing this, and then I'm gonna jump into some more support. Let's see. Yes, so we're gonna implement this. We're gonna fix this, and then we're gonna try implementing from Git. And then yes, so let me go ahead and rename some things here. So we're gonna call this rename WebSocket client. WebSocket client. Let's rename this to REST client. And we're also gonna rename this to REST client. All right. So that's our sessions, and then yeah. Is this renamed correctly? Yeah, WebSocket client. Nice. Okay. So then we have our Sandbox client, and this is currently using. So this will be from ID instead, and this will be from template. And then we're shortly going to implement. Oh, yeah, we do have some more. We have like list. Oh, these are other things. Yeah, I guess it's list. Okay. Wait, what is this? Oh, async. Oh, sorry. What's this used for? I thought this was a method. Wait, list. This is a method, right? Yeah. Sorry. So confusing with all the comments. Okay. Let's see. Let's just add it here from Git. So let's see how we're gonna do that shortly. But then we have, yeah. So we have create session. But this is not gonna be, now we're rather gonna say session here. So this would be, what do we call it? Sandbox session. Oh yeah, sorry. So this is going to be called create session. Oh, we have two of them now because there's an internal create session as well. Oh, maybe we can just use that one now. Oh, and then we have this global session. Okay, we're gonna keep this internal for now. Let's see. Where were we? Down here. Create. So we're gonna say let's just call this custom session. So this is gonna be custom session or await create session, and we're not gonna pass anything here because this is gonna be the global thing. Okay, and then we have create session. Oh, what's happening? We're just gonna start it up. Yes, I guess this is gonna be create session. Yeah, exactly. So we're always gonna use the, yeah, okay, I think this makes sense. So this ensures that we should call this global session. Oh yeah, I remember now. I call this session so I could override it. I think we're still gonna call it global session. Just to be like perfectly clear about that. I'm gonna return that one. I guess we don't need to wait it. Or we return the global session. Cool, this makes sense. And then we had create REST client. And again, we're just gonna do, oh, fuck. Because this one now has a mix of creating a session and the client options for creating the REST client. And this is the whole thing. I really hate parameters that, like, you never know which one of them you're going to use. So you might want to have a custom session, or you might want to do some client options, but you don't want a custom session. Or you might want to do a custom session, but not client options. So if those are two different parameters, then you often get into, like, you literally get into a situation where in one of the cases, you're going to pass in undefined as the first argument. Fuck. But I have a feeling that we're actually going to have options here as well. Designing APIs is hard. It's very unlikely though that you want to do this stuff, like having custom headers and a custom fetch and stuff like that. Maybe we should just, well, there's absolutely no reason for you to do that. So maybe we should just drop those client options for now to make things consistent, and then we can rather Yeah, I want to do that. Oh. Yeah, so a new REST client. Like, we could allow you to just, like, if you really want to, like, configure the REST client, you can just create, like, you can instantiate a new REST client. Yeah, and then we just make, is it optional? Yeah, we're just gonna do this. Cool. And then, what else was there? Yeah, so we do from template. Yeah, we don't need to do this source stuff. Let's see. Creates, oh yeah, we don't need, oh. So create sandbox, git source, so these are base options. These are still, let's see, I'm just gonna answer one thing. Oh, I'm getting out of like from my early days, like even before doing coding and stuff, I've always been like in a supporting role. So I'm kind of very, like, my muscle memory kind of drags me towards support all the time. But it can get distracting. Anyways, do we okay, create, let's see. We don't need this source thing anymore. Create sandbox template options. Okay, let's rename this to from template options. Yeah. Oh, where's the others? Let's just call them sandbox base options. Ah! What are we gonna call these things? By the way, let's move these ones up. So this would be from Git options. This would be from files options. What are we gonna call this? Should we still call it create? Okay, I'm gonna rename that to create from. Yeah. Cool, and then, oh, why didn't I do that immediately? Create from create from Git create from files. Okay, let's just call it that for now. Yeah, but we don't really have this one anymore. Yeah, so it would rather be a base create some, like it would rather be like this. Okay. Cool. And then it will be create from template options. There's no source. Yeah, we're not going to switch this thing anymore since those are not implemented. Let's just take this thing and make that all it does. Like so. And now you're happy. Cool. And then the other thing from Git would then be options, create from Git options. And this is also going to return a promise of sandbox in due time. Not implemented. Yes. And then, was that all? That was all, right? So now we have connect, we have create REST client, and one returns a REST client, the other returns a WebSocket client. We have is up to date, we're consistently passing start options, blah, blah, blah. I think we're happy. So I'm just going to do a small run through the documentation on this, just to kind of see how it actually looks like. It's always nice. So let's see how this is going to look like now. Are we on? No, we're on sessions. Okay, so we're creating, create a client to interact with the environment. So this will be a client instead. Client 2. This will be client 2. And then we hibernate sandbox 2, and then we say new client 2. I guess we can say 2 there. Okay. So use the SDK. Oh, and this will be, interestingly enough, this will now be from template. Oh my God, immediately felt like this. Well, maybe it just needs to grow on me and everyone else. It's the thing about like having so many defaults. Like by its definition, a default is implicit. So there's nothing here saying anything about like from which template, right? Which really sucks. I don't like defaults because it just hides information from whoever's reading the code. They have to know. The thing about code is that one thing is actual code, like for loops and if statements and function definitions and stuff like that. But when you're building APIs, you're building abstractions that people don't know. And if you start creating defaults, you're hiding information. Like the people reading the code, they have to understand how the abstraction works to understand how these defaults actually come into place. Yeah, dagnag it. So it made a lot of sense in my head. But as a lot of things that make sense in my head doesn't quite make sense when you see it on paper. Sandbox from template. The thing is, like, in people's brains, when you say that you're creating a sandbox, like, that it's actually coming from a template, like, it's actually being forked from an existing VM, that's not intuitive to people. Like, you kind of think that you're creating a new VM, a new sandbox, but we're not actually doing that. We're actually forking an existing VM or a snapshot of a VM. And I'm not sure, like, how much should that kind of... And it's kind of important, like, if you're going to use SDK, you have to understand that, that mechanism of the system. But that's something else than actually, like, leaking it into the... So maybe create should be there. But then we could have... Yeah, maybe it wasn't half bad with the source stuff. But it is kind of weird that... well, first of all, you don't know about all the different things. Like, it's very hidden. In the API itself. Like, in the documentation, it's of course very clear, but yeah. Ugh. I hate it when I get to this point where it's really working. It's just that I just can't conclude on how to best expose things. But I think we just have to keep it as is. It was just, okay, we did this now, and it still doesn't feel like 100%. So we can rather try implementing the Git stuff, and then this type of decisions is best made subconsciously anyways. So, but at the same time, I get consciously stuck in it. Yeah, no, maybe it's better to have create, and then you give it a source. And even though there's certain things like... But then you have like the ref thing. Like, how do you point to existing sandboxes? And you can... You can reference them from like, but that's the thing. Like when I say from template, it's like implicitly creating it. So it's more like create from template. So that's the thing. It's like you have, there's just so many things you can do. Where's the to do thing? Because you can like, of course, you can reference an existing sandbox, but you can also reference it by using a snapshot tag. Or you can create one from a template. Or you can create one using Git. But you can also create one or get one using files. And if I use get here, that has the thing of like it's async, but it isn't async. Because we're just like creating this reference to a sandbox. We're not actually grabbing the sandbox here. But you want to know that you want to be perfectly clear about like what. Like you could even do things like this, like clone. Well, clone is like, yeah. Create git. But this isn't create. This with files it isn't create. It's not all. It's like create or get kind of thing. Which is why it feels so much better when you just say from. Because it's like you just want an instance of a sandbox to manage the sandbox. And then there's different ways of getting that instance of managing a sandbox. It's either from an ID, it's from a snapshot tag. Yeah, and this is another thing, because create isn't actually create, it's fork. That's the thing. You're actually forking a VM. So that's also a thing where I don't think create really reflects this, how the system works. And you also have sandbox.fork, right? But again, it's like some of this is internal details. Or maybe this can be called create, and then it's like you have the source thing, and then you have these two, like from ID, from snapshot tag. Now the word from just looks weird to me. I've been looking at it for too long. It's a weird word. By ID, by snapshot tag. Thing about by ID is that it does help like dissolve the illusion of it being async. But this one is async because we have to check the server for the tag. Maybe it can be called, like, what's typical here? It's like you have get and delete and then get by snapshot tag or get by tag. Well, that's also a thing. There's two types of tags. There's snapshot tags and there's like actual sandbox tags, which is also interesting. Get snapshot. I really just want to make this async just for consistency. Like it could also be that we want to like run start on it. So that we kind of have that information in there. I'm not sure. Yeah, or maybe that one thing I really hate is when I do all these like rounds of figuring out APIs and then I just get back to start. No pun intended. Was a literal start here. Yeah, and the interesting thing about the snapshots is that you don't really want them to be started. Like you can technically start them, but the whole point of them is that they're always hibernated, because then the forking is faster. And why would you ever want a snapshot? Maybe you never really want a snapshot. Or I actually want resume here, not start, but resume, because you can't give it start options here. Yeah, maybe this is better. So either you create one, we have different sources for creating, and that includes start options. It's still weird that the files version kind of doesn't really, like based on this hash, it will create a new one, or it returns the same one, but that's just the way it is. Or you can resume an existing one. And we could make that, we could have a guarantee that when you do that, we're actually going to have the thing running. So we're actually going to call start under the hood, because we have to do that regardless. And then we're going to keep those. Oh, hi, Mr. Frank. Yeah, it's funny. Like people are giving me feedback on that Mastra thing. It's an exceptionally cool project, Mastra. Like I talked to the partner of a colleague of mine. I was in Amsterdam this weekend, and he has a project where he like wants to use agents And the thing is, like, often you think, oh, let's go and install the OpenAI SDK, but there's just so much between like the OpenAI SDK and actually shipping a product. And Mastra is really, really, really cool. It just has an amazing experience, and all kind of the plugins or whatever you want to call it that makes it possible to actually ship AI to production. Yeah, we are reflecting on like providing AIs for these sandboxes. So like what you could do is like we have this thing we call a universal template. That universal template is like a VM that's just running bare bones. But we could also have a template that actually runs an agent in it and exposes an endpoint to prompt it and stuff. And we could even like have it in the SDK. So as long as you're like creating a sandbox from this AI template, you would actually have the possibility to say like sandbox.prompt kind of thing. That would be really cool. Anyways. Yeah, like it's so interesting like how Python is like I don't want to say like academic, but it's academic in the sense that like AI came from very much like academia, and then Python is the go-to language for academia, as I understand it. But when it comes to product development, like I don't have any facts on this, but I would argue that from a product development perspective, like TypeScript is the thing that's used the most. Yeah, exactly. TypeScript pays the bills. That's a good way to put it. Okay, cool. But let's say that when you're gonna get this sandbox instance, and there's two ways to get it. Either you create a new sandbox. The files thing is like has its own behavior with a hash and stuff like that, but that doesn't matter. Or you actually resume one. Like I can't imagine you ever wanna interact with the sandbox without actually having it running. That would be really, really weird. So you do resume, and what we can do under the hood there, we can actually start it, because we have to do that regardless. And then if you, for example, go in and do create session, we don't have to go and start it again. It's already been started. Yeah. So that kind of just has that global user and like the boot up details and everything that we need. The thing that it doesn't worry me, but it's a thing that we're not taking into account, is that you could call resume up here. And if this reference to a sandbox was like lingering on the server for like the hibernation timeout, it would mean that you wouldn't, for example, be able to call create session because the VM isn't running. But then we'll throw an error. So I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Yeah, and the thing about resume is that it doesn't like allow you to do start options, because it's not reliable. You don't know if it's already running or not. And start options only make sense when you create it in the first place, or you're kind of restarting it. Okay, we're getting to something. Yeah, but that's also it's the files thing I just can't get out of my brain, because the files thing doesn't make sense with start options, because you don't know if it's going to start or not, because you don't know if you're going to get an existing sandbox or not. But at the same time, like, even changing this API wouldn't change that, because there's only one way to, like, you call the same method regardless. And yeah, no, I don't think we should get hung up on that. Oh, this is actually sandbox fork. Oh yeah, this is old. Yeah, sorry. So this would be sandbox.fork, and that would be start options. Yeah, or sorry, it would be sandbox options. Yeah, it would basically be this. Sorry. Okay. I'm still reflecting on, like, if resume should actually start the VM or call the start. I think it should. And then that, because that global user and boot up details and everything says a lot about, you even have, like, yeah, what, and is up to date. How did we do that now? Is up to date. Yeah, yeah, and again, we're starting it again, like, to check the, yeah, okay, we're gonna do that. I think that makes more sense. So we're gonna have, because then you do await resume, you do await this thing, and of course you have to pass in an ID here. And then, yeah, that's clean. That's super clean. And then when you create the sandbox, you can fork that sandbox, you can restart it, hibernate it, shut down, is up to date. We do not even need this to be, you can check is up to date on the thing, because we just resumed it, so we have those details. You can check things like boot up type, you can check the cluster, stuff like that. Yeah, and then I think we should just document that because of hibernation, this reference yeah, this reference can, like, go stale in a sense. So you would kind of have to call resume again to, yeah, and maybe we could even, like, if you try to run certain things, like, what if you try to call hibernate if it's already hibernated? What if you try to call create session, but, like, we know if it's not running, so we could try to create a session, and if we can't create it, we'll resume it first and then we'll create the session. Like, we could make it kind of just work for those edge cases, but for now we're gonna just document that this reference you resume, this is going to guarantee that the sandbox is running, which makes sense because we're resuming it. But if you keep that reference around on your server for a long time, there's a chance that the sandbox has gotten hibernated. I wonder what the cost is of calling start again when it's already starting. Maybe we should just, like, on create session, we still just call start again. But yeah, that adds, no, we shouldn't do that. Okay, cool. I think we're at a point where it makes sense. The whole deal about like, if it's hibernated and you still have the reference, like that could happen anytime. Like you might call hibernate on it, right? You don't miss the reference. So do we never know, like when you call hibernate. So it's very much in the control of the consumer of the SDK anyways. So we just have to, we should, okay, so what I mean to say is like, we should rather document if a certain method requires the sandbox to actually be running for it to work. So it's very interesting because fork is actually faster if the sandbox is hibernated than if it's running, for example. Cool. I'm happy about that. So let's go in and change this. I guess what we want to do first is just kind of what's the types here? Yeah, this is just, okay, so let's just revert that one. And then the other thing was, what did this do? From git from ID. Okay, let's revert this one. I think that's the only thing we really worked on. Let's see. And I guess this is like create type. Oh, sorry, source template. Where were we? I need to get back to my file explorer. Okay, so we should have resume here instead. And this is going to be async. And we need to remove that logic from, not remove, but move the logic of, oh, and that is this dot start. Ugh. Okay. Oh, interesting. So we also have a public start. Okay, so we're gonna change this. We're not gonna have start. Well, let's take the whole thing. So we're gonna move start over to the sandbox client. And we're gonna actually put it in resume. But no, we're not actually gonna do that. We're gonna have start as an actual. Yeah, we're gonna have it as a private method. Private VM start. Oh, why do I keep hitting that thing? Yeah, so it needs an ID, sandbox ID. Cool, so that's the sandbox ID. And then for resume, we're gonna say, let's see, start result, wait this start. Yeah, there's a start result. And I guess we want to pass that start result into the, or wait, I think we actually want to create a global, do we want to create that? What do we do here? New sandbox. No, we don't have the global user there. What are we actually going to pass in there? So it's not just the global user, it's also It's also like the boot up type and everything. So this would be a sandbox client. Resume this.sandbox. Oh, sorry, this.id. But I'm a little bit confused. So we have this start data that's really the, yeah, sorry. So sorry, sandbox session actually has, okay, so we could pass in like a global session. And then, but also what's interesting is like when we're resuming it, we need to update that global session. So I don't think, let's see, resume, where's resume? Public async. Yeah, we're just awaiting it, exactly. So it's void thing, but I don't think we should do resume. I think we should do start. And then we're gonna, so this sandbox is gonna have a global user. But, how are we gonna do this? Yeah, let's see, sandbox session. Where's sandbox session? Sandbox session. There you are. I don't think it makes sense to have boot up type on session or even cluster. It really belongs to the sandbox. So we can pass that in, but I'm not sure what we're going to call it. What are we going to call it? Maybe like we have sandbox session and sandbox session. Where are we going to put that stuff? So we need to pass in another thing to the constructor. And it's kind of like, it is a global session, but it's also some details about the VM. So I think I want to change this to something. It's like a mix of different things. So it's of course the ID of the sandbox. It's boot up type, it's cluster. It's gonna have this global, but maybe they should be responsible for this. Maybe we should just get the start data here. And then we're gonna actually do all of that here. Start data. Do we have start VM start data? Oh, look at that. I don't like that. I think you can do like return type of VM start. Can I do that? Oh, VM start response. VM start response. Is that the thing I'm looking for? No. But data? No, but that can be undefined now, right? Yeah, because this can now be undefined. Start data or undefined. Ah, this sucks. Okay, okay, we're just gonna call it sandbox options for fuck's sake. Yeah, let's just call it sandbox options. Because we don't have, it's start sandbox options, create. Okay, let's just do export type, sandbox options, boot up type, cluster. We're gonna get, so that will be session, sandbox session. So we need a sandbox session, we need a boot up type, need a cluster, and we also need the ID of the freaking thing. The sandbox ID. Cool. And then we're gonna put that here. Sandbox options. And then we're gonna say, these are private, that's fine. But we're also gonna have an ID on it. We're gonna have a cluster on it. We're gonna have boot up type on it, which would be sandbox options boot up type. And we're gonna have is up to date. Yeah, that's the thing I was missing. Is up to date. That's gonna be a Boolean. Oh, is up to date, Boolean. And you know what we're gonna do here? We're actually gonna change something. We are gonna create a private version of these options. Yeah, I guess we can just do this. And then we're rather gonna have getters. Return this dot options ID. Because we're gonna update these options when we like resume the VM, because these things might actually change. Get cluster. Why does it say sandbox ID? Get is up to date. Return this dot options is up to date. Oh, why does it have sandbox ID as well? Oh, was that from the session? Oh, yeah, we're gonna fix that. Maybe we should just rather say sandbox session, global session. Yeah. Now, where did we go? Where's the sandbox? There you are. Okay, so we're gonna have these private options. And this allows us to expose, of course, the ID. Hello. So I'm working on, so CodeSandbox, if you don't know CodeSandbox, it was started a few years ago doing browser sandboxes. Like it had its own in-browser bundler. I started working at that company through open source, or working on the product, I guess, the solution during through open source, and then it became a company. So during the company, we tried to monetize browser sandboxes. Nobody wants to pay for browser sandboxes. We got some more investment to pivot the company to kind of recreate that instant, kind of amazing experience, but using VMs, which was an insane idea that you can, at the time at least, that you could like make VMs like boot up so fast and be so cost efficient that they could be like similar to actually running something in the browser. Whereas some other people were doing like web containers actually truly running in the browser. We wanted to have real environments. And then we found like this technology called Firecracker that wasn't designed for what we've been using it for, but was a perfect fit. And even though it's like not as fast as in the browser, we got very, very close to it. And then we started building products on top of this, basically cloud development environments, which was a thing that nobody really wanted to use either. Like human engineers doesn't like working in the cloud. And then AI started, and we started talking about, oh shit, we have this amazing infrastructure. What if AI wants to code in the cloud? Which they kind of do. But at that time, we were at the end of our runway, and we didn't have like money, resources, or even energy to pivot again. But then we got acquired by Together AI, and now we're like kind of pivoting the product towards AI, but within the brand of Together. It's not clear yet, like it's still called CodeSandbox, but a lot of this stuff is going to be under the Together brand in the future. Well, I'm not sure about that exactly, but for now it's still under CodeSandbox. So we're kind of rebooting all the open source work we've done in that context of, instead of CodeSandbox being this code editor you go to, it's a set of developer tools to build your own products. Yeah. Hello. And yeah, so what I'm doing is like one of the founders, Yves, of CodeSandbox, kind of made an MVP of this new development tool for managing VMs and connecting to VMs and stuff as a developer tool. And then I'm kind of, as I've always kind of done through the history of CodeSandbox, I'm like now taking that MVP to something that's like scalable, consistent, and gives people what they need. Yeah. But there are other people working on this as well, of course. So we're kind of in a situation now where we have the MVP, we've proven this, and now we're moving into like creating a full team around this, the processes around releases, roadmaps, everything. And I'm just working on this in the background until we kind of have everything in place, and then we're gonna have a big release. That's gonna be fun. Where was I? Yeah, we dropped the client. Oops. Where was that? And then, yeah, so we have resume. So this is gonna give us a start. So what I wanna do, I think, I want this start to actually return the actual thing I want, which is gonna be the sandbox ops. Yeah, that's what I want. So now I can say boot up type response.boot up type. Yeah, though this is a string, I think, so we're just gonna say as sandbox boot up type. The cluster is response cluster. The ID is, of course, the sandbox. Did I pass sandbox ID here? Yeah, sandbox ID. Sandbox ID. We have is up to date would be response dot latest picture version equals response dot picture version. And then we have global session. And global session would then be, we're still going to use sandbox ID here for that session. We have picture token, which is response picture token. We have, yeah, user workspace. Cool. I like this. Why are you complaining? Oh, it's a promise of. Nice. So when we resume here on the, yeah, so this is going to be sandbox. Oops. Nice. And then So this is a yeah, let's see. So when we do a sandbox fork, I believe we are guaranteed that this thing is running. Wait, what is sandbox fork? Actually, I don't think we're guaranteed that it's running. Are we? Oh, yeah, this is a thing. Okay. Oh, this is a thing I have to ask about. What about this? Yeah, just shoving it in there. Yes, because we have a thing, like we have these different clusters and we need to make sure that we actually start it in the correct cluster. So we're gonna, I guess, handle the response here. Do we really care about? Yeah, because we're getting the ID there. Okay, sorry. So now we're gonna have sandbox options, which would be this dot start sandbox.id. And I guess we have opts here. Yeah. Now we pass sandbox opts. Oh, sorry. Await. Okay. So when you actually create now, we're going to actually call this files and not JSON. Where did I put that? JSON. Files. Create sandbox. Files. Source options. Oh. File source options. Okay, so when we create now, you pass in the options related to creating the actual sandbox and any start options, because we're actually going to start it. And then we default to source template. And on template, we set up all this stuff. We fork the VM, but we don't actually start it because currently we're not supporting starting it in the correct cluster unless you call the start explicitly. And I actually removed something here. There was some, start options. Yeah, if provided, the VM will be started immediately after creation, but we don't want that. So we go here, we handle the response, we start the VM, we create the sandbox. Yes. And then on resume, we don't have any start options because we can't guarantee that they're going to be applied because the VM might already be running. But we call like start, which just returns like the started data, and then we get the sandbox thing. And then inside here, we can now do something cool because we're not gonna do this because now we actually have a global session, this ops global session in here. Or we're gonna return that global session. And then if we were to resume, this.resume, we're gonna say this.ops equal, yeah, exactly. So now we can do that, and we're actually gonna update these options whenever you try to resume. So that might lead to the VM actually starting again, but now we have the new options, and those options will now be properly returned here. Well, the ID won't change, but the boot up type might change. The cluster, I guess the cluster won't change, but is up to date might change, so on and so on. And this is, oh, the internal create session. Yeah, we just are not gonna have those things. Nice. So I'm super hungry and I have a meeting in 20 minutes. So what I think we should do is kind of take a brief look at what we did here. So now to create a sandbox, you can either resume it from an ID or you can create it, where there are different sources of creating a sandbox. Right now, there's only a single source called a template, which is an existing VM that you can fork from. But we are going to add Git here, and we're also going to add the ability to just describe files directly. And that's going to use a hash and create a tag and stuff like that. And then there's like ideas of like allowing it to use a zip file or grab it from a Dropbox or whatever. Anyways, when you have this sandbox reference, you can manage that sandbox. So you have information about the sandbox itself. Is it up to date? What was the boot up type for this? What's the cluster? You can go in and fork the thing. You can restart it with some new start options. You can hibernate it, shut it down, resume it. You can update its tier, which means like how many CPUs and memory and stuff it has. And then when you actually want to connect to it, so we're going to remove this. So if you actually want to connect to it, there's basically 2 ways that we're going to support now. Either you just connect to the thing, and that's going to connect you as a global user, and you get access to it, blah, 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 blah. Or you can create a REST client and you can interact with it that way instead. Or you can create a session manually. So this would actually, yeah, so create session. That's the thing we haven't fixed yet. Create, oh, look at this. There is no global. Create session. Hello, session. Yeah, exactly. Create session returns to global session if you don't have any options. That's correct. Okay, so what you can do is, yeah, so all of these are like awaits. Cool. So what you also can do, you can just create a session and then you can pass that session to the browser and you can connect through the browser instead. So it's the same thing as this, only that you only create a session for it and you pass it to the browser. Or you can actually create a custom session where you have like some username or something and you can say permission right. And then you use that to connect. Either you send it to the browser or you connect with it or you create a REST client for it. And later planning on having SSH as well. Yeah, I think that makes most sense. I'm actually not sure if create session needs to be like this, because we already have, maybe we could just expose the global session. And then that's what you would pass to the browser. So you would just say like, so you have sandbox.global session. And the only reason for using create session is if you actually want to create like a custom session. I think that makes more sense. Because then this is the global stuff. And then this is the, like, let's call it browser session. And then const browser session will be like session. Because you don't actually have to create this, you just have it. That's the thing. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Sandbox. And then get global session. Yeah, this ops global session, and then create session. Hello, create session. You must have options. Yeah, and then this. Oh, sorry. So this also needs to be. Yeah, maybe create session isn't actually needed. Oh, sorry. Well, it is because you need for the browser. Yeah, I think we're gonna do this. So it's custom session or it's this dot global session. Cool. And then, yeah. But this one doesn't actually need to be its own internal thing. Now we can actually make that the actual create session. So we'll do this instead. Yeah, by the way, it's actually called ID. Nice. Okay, this is cleaner. Cool. I like this. Yeah, so you have sandbox.global session. Yes, and you can just pass that to the browser. I really like this. Or you can choose to create a session that you can pass to the browser, or you can use with Connect or create REST client. I think that was a trick. Is like, yeah, not passing these options here in here. Or maybe you can. Like, it's just, yeah, maybe you can. The thing is, like, this is like unnecessary. Like, you know how you want to connect your user. Either you use the browser, or you use this, or you use this, right? You don't choose. So you can create a session. Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm not sure. Because you can also keep these sessions. At least for REST. You can, like, that session actually lives until the VM restarts. So, yeah, okay. Not completely sure about this yet. Let's let that linger a bit. But this is nice. And I guess we have it actually implemented now as well, which is also great. Cool. Let's keep it at that. And then I'm going to do my meeting. I'm going to get some more context on how we do this files thing. And then we're going to actually try to implement the Git clone support. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for following along, and I'll talk to you later, maybe. Bye-bye.